Millennial bashing seems to be a popular trend going around at the moment. Now, unfortunately, we're going to have to look at a video about Brexit in order to break down millennial bashing, as it seems to have really sprung to the surface since Brexit. Just hearing the word Brexit actually makes me feel like I'm going to vomit. Some sort of Pavlovian response has now kicked in. I think there should be some sort of law where you just limit the amount of times you can hear one particular fucking word. Is that too much to ask for? But anyway, unfortunately, in order to get to the crux of millennial bashing, this is a good place to start. A lot of the arguments here don't just relate to Brexit, they relate to the bashing of young people in general.
Stupid butthurt millennials are all over social media whining and crying because the UK voted to leave the EU.
Paul Joseph Watson there, whining and crying about stupid millennials, who he says are whining and crying because the UK chose to leave the EU. I must admit, I am a bit butthurt, but that's what happens when 52% of the population has fucked you up the arse.
They're out on the streets protesting against democracy and in favour of the political establishment.
Fuck, I guess they must have all left their "I hate democracy" signs at home that day then. Always come prepared. Now this is the part where I start to lose sympathy. EU, we love you. EU, we love you. The EU is not a person. You can't love it. You can't love the EU. That's just silly.
Haven't witnessed this kind of outpouring of love for an undemocratic superstate since the Hitler Youth.
And what about America during 9/11? An outpouring of love for an undemocratic superstate? Sounds about right.
I feel like we're watching the stirrings of fascism in Europe again, and I genuinely never thought it would be my country that did that.
And then your sympathy levels just go, boo, when you see stuff like that. Because crying about it, how sad is your life? How closeted have you been if you're actually crying about this? Have you never had any other problems in your life apart from this? I cannot believe that a grown woman, even a fucking 10-year-old, would cry about this. It's absolute insanity. I don't understand where this is coming from. Is it the stir into fascism or not? It could be a genuine concern, but really at the moment we have... Really, right now we have bigger issues, so carry on.
So he voted against being ruled by a centralised authoritarian superstate dominated by Germany, and somehow you think that that makes us fascist.
We voted against an authoritarian superstate led by Germany, and somehow that makes us fascist. Doesn't make you fascist or racist or anything like that necessarily, it just makes you a bit stupid, because what's going to happen now? Are we in a better position or are we in a worse position? We have a worse government, don't we?
Media had the temerity to claim that Vote Leave supporters were, quote, low information.
The fucking media and your temerity. Where did you get a crazy idea like that from? Oh wait, that's exactly what the data indicates, isn't it? Tended to be older, less educated, not have a passport, etc. But to be fair, they shouldn't focus on just that, and it is insulting. I'd like to know though, if you get your information from Infowars.com, are you then by default considered to be a low information voter? I highly suspect you should be.
Yet here's a video of a 22-year-old woman crying over Brexit because she thinks it will lead to the immediate closure of Nando's restaurant.
You're 22 and you're crying because Nando's might close.
I will say that is fucking funny. And sad at the same time in equal measure. When you watch these clips, you kind of think there's no hope anywhere anymore. I mean, who do you fucking root for in this situation?
This is not a spoof. She actually thinks that the UK leaving the EU will force a South African originated food chain to close its doors.
Oh, can I even move? Do you have it?
Thick people, established since time began. And they ain't going anywhere, are they? And they're on both sides in abundance, obviously.
Look at these utter morons. They don't know the names of any EU commissioners. They don't even know what the EU does. This idiot thinks that the best thing about the EU is the NHS. The British National Health Service.
If you were to list your 3 favourite things about the EU, Holly, what would they be?
They would be, well, definitely the NHS.
The thing is, she obviously doesn't really know what the fuck is going on, and she's seen a whole group of people just fucking marching for this thing, and she's like, yeah, me too, etc. You know, it's kind of fucking sad, isn't it?
She thinks that Brexit means the government will no longer pay for her to travel to France.
If I can't go to France, I've got to pay to go to France now. Flight travel.
She thinks we should have stayed in the EU so everyone would be forced to have the same opinion.
That's what basically, like, for me, it's just about everyone being united together and like having the same opinion.
Thinks we should be forced to stay in the EU so everyone should have the same opinion. Does she not say she doesn't agree with it? The right to protest? A lot of the talk regarding Brexit was about freedoms. Here we see a whole group of young people taking part in democracy and expressing the right to protest. Now, they may not understand what they're doing, but at least they're not just whining and complaining on social media. Remember?
Special snowflakes are also whining about how old people have stolen their future.
He thinks that young people think that we have a future. He doesn't know young people. How old is this guy? He's like fucking, what, a couple of years either older or younger than me. We're basically the same age. But he's making out as if he's in his 60s or something. Like, fucking young people, how dare they? Paul, how old are you, mate? Fuck's sake. Talking about people your own age here.
Only 36% of them even bothered to vote. 64% of 18 to 24-year-olds couldn't be arsed. Hey, millennials. Virtue signalling and whinging on Facebook isn't the same as voting. Signing fraudulent online petitions isn't the same as voting. Calling anyone who voted Leave a racist to get social media brownie points isn't the same as voting. You lost. Get over it.
I can't get over it, Paul. It's just so damaging to me. I'm so fucking sick of hearing this. Young people didn't bother to vote. So what the fuck should we do? Just shut up and take it? How sad to see democracy always limited to this fucking idea of you had your vote, now shut up, deal with it. What if you don't support either side? Isn't it better to stay out? Don't you have a right to say you don't think either option is correct and that they're both basically fucked? I didn't vote. Why? Because I didn't understand the question being posed and I couldn't find out enough information to make up my mind, and it would be irresponsible to vote either way unless you understand the choices being presented. That would be undemocratic. People didn't bother to vote. It's probably because for the same reason the young people never fucking vote. The reality is, politicians don't give a fuck about young people, most of them, and they don't want their vote. They're buying the grey vote. That's why state pension is locked at a time when welfare for younger people is constantly being cut. They buy the grey vote. It's well known. Young people do care about politics. Look at the thousands and thousands that have been mobilised in the Sanders campaign in the US or Corbyn here, most of which has come from young people. If they want to increase fucking turnout, just try this one simple thing. Change polling day from Thursday to a fucking Saturday. You know, when people are actually off and they've got free time to do other shit. One of the other things going around was young people all pissed off to Glastonbury that day, and so therefore they're not entitled to whinge. There are, 16, 17 million people in this country aged between 18 and 35. Is Glastonbury now some sort of fucking massive island where you just go to escape the vote? Is it that big that everybody, every single young person that age is just going to flee en masse, off to Glastonbury we go? Jesus Christ, I can't even afford to think about going to Glastonbury. I wouldn't want to go anyway because it's a corporate fucking sellout. But Jesus Christ, how patronising can you be?
No amount of dumb protest placards or demands for a second referendum is going to change that. Go back to your London swank pads paid for by your rich parents and smoke some more weed.
Actually sitting in a London swank pad as we speak, as you can see, it's complete luxury that I'm surrounded by. Nothing but the best. I can't actually afford to have the heating on. So when it gets pretty cold, found that jumpers are actually a great investment. But you know, we got things like this to keep us warm, like the duck. By the way, if you have any comments or if this duck has no name, it's just the politics duck. if you have any ideas for what I should call it, and currently it's millennial duck, I guess, because of the hat. But if you'd like to suggest anything, please go ahead. That's another thing can't afford actually. You stop rubbing it in.